How are you guys doing today, ladies, guys? How are you today? Okay, today I promised that I would go live. I haven't gone live in a minute. Busy, 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 as you know, working on some stuff in the back end that we are excited to talk about. We talked about on our Sacred Feminine Energy webinar. You're going to get lots of notifications about it. So, today, what I want to do is I want to sort of do a little bit more exploration, I would say, a little bit more exploration about nutrition and hormone health. So, when we did our Sacred Feminine Energy Masterclass the other day, even though it was almost 2 hours long, we just like tip of the iceberg. And I did want to come on and sort of give more context and more information and answer a few additional questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, and I didn't get a chance to get to. And of course, in our Sacred Femininity course, we will do an even deeper dive. But I did want to come on this week, and today we'll talk about nutrition. Tomorrow, we will talk about fitness, and then we're going to talk about Ibadah and productivity. So you're going to want to make sure that you have notifications on for this week, definitely. And I will save these videos so you will be able to come back and watch them later, but you want to make sure that you do come back and watch them. I also want to remind my Instagram people that you have to like, share, and follow in order to comment, ask questions, and all of that other good stuff. Okay. So today I want to talk a little bit about nutrition and give you guys some nutrition tips. You probably want to make sure that you save this video, take some notes, and all that other great stuff. So let's dive right into talking a little bit about nutrition around our naturally fluctuating female hormones. Let me first clarify that we will talk today relating to women who are within their reproductive years. I'm not going to dive into menopause or perimenopause today, but just women who are in their reproductive years that get a menstrual cycle. Okay, so just to clarify, right? And I'll give some little points and tips on people who have irregular menstrual cycle due to hormonal imbalances like PCOS. So we will talk about that a little bit. So first of all, I always like to start off and remind people that we have 4 phases to our menstrual cycle. Our hormones, I keep saying we're going to sort of change the terminology that we talk about. Like we talk about balancing hormones. Technically, we don't balance hormones because balance indicates an even kill. And literally, for as a woman, one of the markers of womanhood is that our hormones actually fluctuate throughout the month, right? So technically, even though we use the term balance hormones, we don't actually balance our hormones. We do achieve hormone health so that the hormones themselves are have some, let's say, equity at its appropriate phases, right? Because there are phases in our menstrual cycle where we want our estrogen to be high, where we want our progesterone to be low, where we want our testosterone to be high. And those things are going to give each one of those phases is going to give us some unique abilities that is joined with that fluctuation of hormones. So if you were not paying attention in biology class, we have 4 phases to our menstrual cycle, right? You have the menstruation, which is the actual bleed. That is phase 1. Everybody knows about the menstruation phase because it is very tangible, right? It is tangible. You have menstruation. So that is phase one. And menstruation for women can vary in its length and its intensity. And so, what I do want to just remind everybody is that your menstrual cycle and your menstrual phase is unique to you. Every woman has her own experience with menstruation. So I'm going to talk in sort of like a very general way. So when I say 7 days of menstruation and you have five, that's your five, right? It doesn't change what causes menstruation to happen. It's just that sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. Oftentimes, as we get older, our menstruation phase can actually lengthen. That's one of the signs of perimenopause, right? Is that an irregular menstruation. So again, only you know what is normal to you. This is a second thing, a second note that I just want to also say for women in particular, is that we have to really know our own body, get to know your body. You should be tracking your menstrual cycle. If you are not tracking your menstrual cycle, if your menses show up every month and you're like, oh, my menses came, I wasn't expecting that, then you need to track your menstrual cycle closer. You should know what days you bleed heavy, what days, like you should be able to predict in some way what your menstrual cycle is going to be. So, this is important for health in general. If you have an abnormality, you know that it's an abnormality. No one can tell you that it's abnormal but you, because that is a private event that only you have firsthand access to. So you have to be able to know that, to be able to tell your doctor, to be able to know when you have warning signs of a health issue happening. The second reason, which is even more important for Muslim women, for you to know, like you have to know your menstrual cycle, is because it is directly connected to your ibadah. And the laws around the fiqh of menstruation is individual to you. Only you know if your spotting is a part of your menstrual cycle or if it's abnormal. Your ibadah is directly connected to that. We'll talk about that at another time, but very important for you to track and know your menstrual cycle as a Muslim woman. All right, 4 phases of menstruation. You have the menstruation, right? That's your first. We're going to, for for ease, I should say, for ease, what we'll do is we will talk about menstruation in sort of a 4-week phase. Again, everybody's menstrual period is different. If you have a 3-day menses, then alhamdulillah. If you have 10 days menses, alhamdulillah, right? But we are going to, for the ease of our conversation over this week, say that each phase is a week, right? Week 1 is your menstruation. Week 2 is called the follicular phase. Think about that as the phase in which your body is gearing up and it's preparing for a pregnancy. It wants you to get ready to get pregnant. Then you have your ovulatory phase. That is when you ovulate. That is when your body is trying to get pregnant. We have all kind of stuff that goes on during that period, which is our superpower period, right? Then you have your luteal phase. So your luteal phase is the phase right before your menstruation. That is that week where you're feeling emotional, where you are a little bit uneasy, have a little bit more anxiety. All of that happens that week before your menstruation. That's a really pivotal week because it's a week that I think between that week and menstruation is a week that people confuse a lot of things, and understanding how our body is working during these different phases is really going to help you. You know, my term is hone in on your superpower. The reason why I call our naturally fluctuating female hormones a superpower is because if you've ever watched any superhero movie, right? When the hero first discovers that they have powers, they aren't quite sure how to use them, right? They fly and then they bump into stuff, or they use their energy to knock over things that wasn't supposed to be knocked over. But once they begin to understand their superpower, like us, once we begin to understand our superpower and understand how to use it, we will know exactly how to live in harmony with our hormones and use those powers at appropriate time for the appropriate things and use them for good, mostly. Okay, so let's dive into what some of those superpower mean. So today we want to talk specifically about nutrition, right? How does nutrition affects our hormones? Super huge effect on your hormones. Of course, I'm only going to be on for a few minutes today, but I did want to just give you sort of like an overview of what different phases of your hormone nutrition looks like. So let's start off with phase one, which is the menstrual phase, right? Everybody's familiar with this phase. Couple of things that you want to keep in mind during your menstrual phase. If you have particularly heavy menstruation or you have really bad cramps during your menstruation, the important thing that I want you to remember is there are some immediate fixes that will help during that phase. But the most important time during that phase is actually going to be the rest of the month. So if you're trying to reduce your flow, what you are eating throughout the month is what is going to actually determine how heavy your flow is. So that's really important. But during this phase, you do want to stock up on things like vitamin B and iron. These things are probably common knowledge, right? Obviously, we're losing blood. You want to make sure that you're not losing the things that are important to maintain a good blood flow in your body. And some of those foods that are going to be important during this is the time for you to have red meat. If you're like, oh, I'm not a red meat person, I only eat it periodically, save your steak for your period, right? That is actually the time that you want to have red meat. If you don't eat red meat, this is a time for you to eat seafood, right? Seafood and red meat, kale, if you don't eat animal meat at all, mushrooms, kelp, beets, all of those things are high in those two nutrients. They're high in iron and they're high in B vitamins. This may be also a time where you want to actually begin to take those supplements. So again, here's another sort of like misnomer about supplements is some supplements you actually don't need to take them every single day of the month. There are supplements that you can cycle throughout your month so that you can be able to have the nutrients that you need at the time that you need them. There are other supplements that require sort of like a buildup, such as vitamin D, that you do want to take throughout the month, but not every supplement has to be taken every single day. Okay, so now we are past our menstruation. And here's the other thing that I want to say about menstruation. I'm always trying to dispel this myth, right? The myth is during your menstruation, your hormones are going crazy, and that's the reason why you are so uneasy. It's actually not true. Generally, we are uneasy because we have cramps and bloating, and there's physical symptoms that makes you physically uneasy. But our hormones is actually the most stable during our menstrual period, during the actual bleed. So if you want to sort of like figure out where's my baseline energy at those last two, if you have like a 5 to 7 day period, those last 2 days is probably going to be your baseline energy. first few days, often women have heavy days or they have cramps when their period is first starting. If you don't, alhamdulillah for you. But those last couple of days are normally where your physical symptoms have gone away and you can actually feel where your equilibrium is. So that is during your menstruation. So once your menstruation in, now we are in the follicular phase, right? So the follicular phase is sort of your body's like, okay, we didn't have a baby this month. Now we're going to try again next month. We're going to build up. We got to start from baseline, but we building, right? Your body is always trying to get you pregnant. Just as a side note. So you want to take into consideration that this is the phase that your body is actually trying to build a healthy endometrial lining, right? So it's sort of like anticipating our ovulation for pregnancy, and it is building up the lining, saying like, oh, okay, what are the things that I need so that just in case we get an embryo, my endometrial lining is going to be nice and healthy. So this is the phase where there are two nutrients. There are other nutrients, but again, we have to condense for our short time together. There are other nutrients, but the two nutrients that you really want to focus on in this month is going to be folate and omega-3, right? So particularly if you are trying to get pregnant, this is going to be two nutrients that you want to really, really focus on getting. So omega-3, this is the week, that you're going to stock up on your salmon. And if you eat sardines, this is going to be the week, right? This is going to be the week that you want all of those things that's going to have omega-3. Spinach, broccoli, berries, asparagus, Brussels sprout, salmon, sardines, chia seeds. Those are the things that you really want to make sure that you are stocking up on during this. And folate, again, spinach, same vegetables, spinach, asparagus, berries. You want to make sure that you're eating lots of berries. This is the follicular phase. This is after your menstruation, the week before you ovulate. So your menstruation is done. You're clear of the blood. Now your body is starting to build up your endometrial lining to get ready for an implantation of an embryo. So it's like, what do I need in order for those things to be for me to have a healthy endometrial? This is also going to be the week that you really want to, if you are taking omega-3 supplements, you actually might want to increase it in this week, because the other thing that is going to happen in this week is if you increase your omega-3s, is actually, remember I said earlier that you have to plan for that period, the month prior to it. More omega-3s can actually lighten your period, right? So that's an important note, right? If you happen to be a person that suffer from really heavy periods. Okay. Follicular phase. You had your menstruation. You've got through to your week of follicular phase, right? So had your red meat and your kale and all of those other B vitamins and iron during that menstrual phase. Follicular phase, now we are heavy on the salmon and the chia seeds and the asparagus, right? We're really stocking up on that folate and that and those omega-3s. And so now it's time for ovulation, right? It is time for ovulation. So this is when, remember we talked about earlier how like when you start getting those superpowers, you just get like, I'm not quite sure how to wield them in the right way to get the results. Your ovulation phase is that phase. Your ovulation phase is when all of your superpowers basically align. This is the week where so many good things happen. I know we're only focused on nutrition today, so I'm going to try to stay focused because I love talking about all of the superpowers that we gain during ovulation, but I'm going to try to stay focused today. Stay focused, Mubaraka. Stay focused, Mubaraka. Okay. All right. So ovulatory phase. Your ovulatory phase is the phase where your body will ovulate. Technically, we only ovulate one day, but because we have such a rise in our hormones, it our hormones don't rise overnight, right? It takes about 2 days. So your ovulatory phase is going to take about 2 days. Those hormones are ramping up, ramping up. It's going to hit a peak, and then it's going to take about 2 days ramping down before it goes into the next phase. So you have a good 5 days of your ovulatory phase, right? Couple of things that you want to keep in mind. It is very normal for you to actually be warmer, like physically warmer during this time, because our core body temperature actually increases a little bit for our ovulatory phase. In this is the phase where you have really high levels of estrogen. Estrogen is our superpower. Like, that's like, ooh, we got estrogen. Like, estrogen is like literally what aligns everything together. So in our ovulatory phase, our estrogen levels are a little bit higher, and we want to support those by having lots of leafy greens, things like cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower. They actually help your body to metabolize the estrogen. So in this phase, we are making sure we are eating vegetables at every single meal. You have eggs in the morning, you're going to put some spinach in it. You have a salad at lunchtime, you're going to add some kale to it. For dinner, you're going to have some broccoli, for some cabbage. We are stocking up on the things that are going to help us. We produce more estrogen to metabolize that estrogen so our body can use it in the proper way. Okay, now we are in our luteal phase. So this is the fourth of the phases. So we went through the menstrual phase, that's when you actually have menstruation. And then the follicular phase, that is your endometrial lining building up. And then your ovulatory phase, that is when you ovulate. And now you're not pregnant. This is again, now your body's like, oh, darn it, we're not pregnant. Now it's sort of, honestly, it almost get mad at us. Be honest, right? Everybody is like, I'm gonna like throw a temper tantrum because I did all that work to prepare for embryo to get implanted and it didn't. So I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. So in your luteal phase, this is the week before your period. When we talk about, oh, your hormones are going crazy, your hormones actually go a little bit crazy the week before your period, not during your period. So when you're acting emotional, you have to sit back and think, when you're like mad at the world, is my period coming soon? Right? For all of the guys that's sneaking in on the listen, forgive us for everything that we say before our period. Before our period. So that is when you tend to actually be very emotional, because our hormones are not very stable during that month. So what do you do during this month? We're going to talk on Thursday, I believe it is, about sort of like how to create some emotional stability during this month. But today we actually want to specifically talk about nutrition. All right. So I'm going to try to stay focused because I've got so much stuff that I want to share. All right. So this is the phase where our hormones are sort of like going crazy. You'll have cravings, like all of these things will happen during this month. All right. During this week. I'm going to need you to woosah. All right. Woosah. Just woosah just a little bit. All right. So one of the things that you do want to be aware of is that during this month, if you have insulin resistance, PCOS, prediabetes, or diabetes, because of the fluctuating of hormones, is actually harder to manage your blood sugar. So even though you want to eat everything that's in front of you, I need you to woosah. I need you to have dark chocolate with as little sugar in it as possible. That is going to give you some magnesium, right? Magnesium is going to be your key nutrient during this phase of the month. This phase is going to be important. Magnesium is going to do a couple of things. It improves our sleep. We can have, because of those fluctuating hormones, it's not uncommon to have insomnia, wake up in the middle of the night, have a hard time sleeping. Unfortunately, this gets a little bit a little more challenging when we get older and going into those perimenopausal years. So 45, earliest 40, but definitely around 45, right? This can actually even be. It is not uncommon for people to, if you do suffer from depression or anxiety, right? You want to make sure that you are aware that your period is coming, and these things may get a little bit more challenging during this time. Being aware of them is going to help you sort of like not freak out as much, right? Don't divorce your husband and throw the kids in the trash can, because this is the week before your period, and you have to learn how to modulate those emotions, which we'll talk about on Thursday, right? So magnesium is going to help you decrease your chances of getting headaches, improve your sleep. It is going to relieve constipation if you have a constipation issue during this time. Yes, we do have, one of the things that happens when we have our menstrual cycle and the week before our menstrual cycle is our gut hormone actually shifts and changes, which is the reason why many women will have gut issues, constipation, diarrhea, those kind of things right before their period. The other foods that you want to have that does have lots of magnesium, this is when we want pumpkin seeds and almond. Spinach and broccoli is really good for women all month long. So I keep saying spinach and broccoli. Let me just say spinach and broccoli every single phase. Okay. They just have so many nutrients in those two things. Cashews, halibut, fish, avocados, and dark chocolate, right? This is the time for that. So when you are thinking about sort of like choosing your foods that's going to help support your hormones, those are going to be the things that you really want to focus on. So nutrition, that's just sort of like an overview. I do want to invite you to join our Sacred Femininity course. This is a course that will be taught by myself and Sheikh Aisha Prime to answer all of your questions and to give you a deep dive into our unique connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are women. Not in spite of us being women, not alternate because we are women, because we are women, and our unique connection with Allah through our mind, body, and our soul. So you can comment sacred underneath here, and I will send you a link with more information. Until tomorrow. So today we talked about nutrition. I saw there was a few questions about ibadah and about fitness. We will talk about fitness throughout our menstrual cycle tomorrow. So make sure you follow and put the notifications on. Send this video to another superwoman that you know. It helps the algorithm, and you can help another superwoman hone in on her superpowers. All right. So inshallah, I will talk to you soon. Assalamu alaikum.